The forest welcomed the hiker with cool indifference, its silence almost palpable. Towering pines stood like ancient guardians, their needles muffling the outside world, creating a cocoon of stillness. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the wind. A sense of solitude, almost sacred, settled upon the hiker's shoulders, as if the forest itself was watching. The path, barely discernible beneath a carpet of fallen leaves, wound deeper into the woods, inviting yet foreboding. Each step was softer than the last, swallowed by the silence of the forest floor, a silence that seemed to grow thicker. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood, a reminder of the forest's ancient life cycle. The hiker pressed on, drawn by an unseen force, a magnetic pull that defied explanation. The trees seemed to close in, their branches intertwining overhead like grasping claws, creating a natural cathedral. The hiker felt a prickle of unease, a primal instinct warning of unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. But it was too late to turn back, the path behind him swallowed by the forest's embrace. The forest held him captive, its embrace both alluring and terrifying, a paradox of beauty and menace. A low stone wall emerged from the undergrowth, crumbling and draped in moss. It stood as a silent sentinel, a relic of a bygone era. It hinted at a presence long forgotten, reclaimed by the relentless embrace of nature. The forest had woven itself into the very fabric of the ruins, creating a tapestry of life and decay. Curiosity piqued, the hiker stepped closer, drawn to its silent mystery. Each step was a journey into the past, a quest to uncover the stories hidden within the stones. Beyond the wall lay a sight both eerie and melancholic. The air seemed to thicken with the weight of history and untold tales. Time-worn headstones, barely discernible beneath layers of moss and lichen, stood in silent vigil. They were guardians of memories, their inscriptions fading into oblivion. The air grew heavy, as if burdened by unseen grief. A dense mist began to roll in, shrouding the forest in an ethereal veil. This was a place of rest, a graveyard swallowed by the forest's embrace. Nature had claimed it, yet it remained a sanctuary for the departed. The hiker wandered through the overgrown graveyard, each step a soft crunch on the forest floor. The ground was a mosaic of roots and fallen leaves, a testament to the passage of time. Names, once etched with love and sorrow, were now lost to time. The stories of those who lay beneath were whispered only by the wind. The silence was profound, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the trees. It was as if the forest itself was breathing, sharing its secrets with those who dared to listen. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows through the trees, the forest transformed into a realm of mystery and shadows. The hiker realized the folly of lingering in this forgotten place where time seemed to stand still, and the air grew thick with an eerie silence. The air grew colder, the silence deeper, as if the forest itself were holding its breath, waiting for something unseen to emerge from the shadows. The path, barely visible in the fading light, seemed to twist and turn, leading the hiker further astray, deeper into the heart of the forest. Panic welled in their chest, a cold knot of fear tightening with each step. The forest seemed to close in around them, its shadows growing longer and darker. The forest was no longer welcoming. It was a labyrinth of shadows and unseen eyes watching their every move, making the hiker feel more isolated and vulnerable. The last rays of sunlight faded, plunging the graveyard into an oppressive darkness. The once familiar path was now a treacherous maze. The hiker stumbled blindly, their heart pounding in their ears, each step more uncertain than the last. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of leaves sent shivers down their spine. They were not alone. The forest was alive with unseen presences, lurking just out of sight. The hiker froze, every sense on high alert. A twig snapped in the distance, the sound sharp and clear in the stillness. Something was moving through the trees, its passage marked by the rustling of leaves and the snapping of branches. Fear, primal and consuming, gripped the hiker's heart. They strained to see through the darkness, their eyes playing tricks on them. Every shadow seemed to writhe and twist, taking on menacing forms. The forest held its breath, watching, waiting. A low growl, deep and guttural, echoed through the trees. The hiker's blood ran cold. This was no ordinary animal. This was something ancient, something hungry, something that had been waiting for them. Section 5. The Rustling Fear. The rustling grew closer, circling the hiker like a predator stalking its prey. They stumbled backward, their foot catching on a gnarled root. They fell, landing hard on the unforgiving forest floor. Panic surged through them, threatening to overwhelm their senses. They scrambled to their feet, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The rustling suddenly stopped. Silence descended once more, heavy and suffocating. Then, a twig snapped directly behind them. The hiker whirled around, their heart pounding in their chest, but there was nothing there, only the oppressive darkness and the feeling of being watched. Section 6. A glimpse of malice. The hiker stumbled through the darkness, desperate to escape the unseen terror that stalked them. The trees seemed to reach out with skeletal branches, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. The forest had become a prison, its beauty twisted into something menacing and cruel. A flash of movement caught the hiker's eye. Something darted between the trees, a fleeting glimpse of shadow and malice. It was too fast to make out any details, but the image seared itself into their mind. The growl echoed again, closer this time, filled with a hunger that chilled the hiker to the bone. They ran blindly, recklessly, their only thought to escape the nightmare that had ensnared them. The hiker's breath came in ragged gasps, their lungs burning with exertion, but they didn't dare slow down. Not with that sound, that guttural growl, growing ever closer. The forest floor seemed to reach up, tripping them with unseen roots and tangled undergrowth. They could hear it now, moving through the trees with unnatural speed and agility. Branches snapped, leaves rustled, and the growl became a steady, menacing rhythm that spurred them onward. The forest opened up ahead, revealing a moonlit clearing. Hope surged through the hiker, a fleeting beacon in the darkness. But as they stumbled into the open, they realized their mistake. The clearing was a dead end. The hikers spun around, their back pressed against the rough bark of a towering oak. The forest pressed in on all sides, a wall of shadows and unseen eyes. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide. The rustling stopped. The growling ceased. An eerie silence descended upon the clearing, broken only by the sound of the hiker's own ragged breathing. They were trapped, alone with whatever lurked in the darkness. Then, slowly, deliberately, something began to emerge from the trees. A shape coalesced from the shadows, taking on a form both grotesque and terrifying. The hiker squeezed their eyes shut, unable to bear the sight. The hiker couldn't help it. Curiosity, or perhaps a morbid fascination, compelled them to open their eyes. Standing before them, bathed in the cold light of the moon, was a creature that defied description. It was tall and gaunt, its flesh stretched taut over a skeletal frame. Its limbs were long and twisted, ending in claws that scraped against the forest floor. But it was the creature's face that truly horrified. Its eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, seemed to pierce the hiker's very soul. Its mouth, stretched into a grotesque grin, revealed rows of sharp, pointed teeth. It was a nightmare given form, a creature born of darkness and fear. The creature took a step closer, its grin widening. The hiker could smell its breath, a foul stench of decay and death. They knew, with a certainty that chilled them to the bone, that this was the end. The creature lunged. The hiker screamed, a primal sound of terror that echoed through the silent forest. And then, everything went black. The forest held its breath, the trees standing silent, witness to the horror. The creature had claimed another victim, its hunger momentarily satiated, and in the cold light of the moon, the ancient graveyard seemed to sigh, its secrets safe for another night.